Banks collapsing, unemployment rising, people losing everything overnight. It happened in 1929, when the world spiraled into the darkest economic disaster in modern history. But today, almost a century later, those same red flags are back. Inflation is out of control. Central banks are hiking rates. Debt is at record levels. And now, economists, investors, and ordinary people are all asking the same haunting question. Are we heading into another Great Depression? Or worse, is the next collapse already quietly unfolding around us? This is not just about numbers. This is about your job, your savings, your future. Let's uncover what history tells us, what today's data warns us, and what you need to do before it's too late. The Great Depression didn't start with just a bad day on Wall Street. It started with a false sense of invincibility. The roaring 20s were booming, stocks soared, consumer credit expanded, and people believed the good times would last forever. But in October 1929, the bubble burst. The market crashed. But what turned a crash into a decade-long depression was a deadly chain reaction. Banks failed, and there was no FDIC. People lost life savings. Deflation set in. Prices dropped, but debt stayed the same. Unemployment exploded, peaking at over 25%. Governments cut spending instead of stimulating growth. By the early 1930s, nearly 15 million Americans were jobless, and over 9,000 banks had collapsed. Now let's fast forward to today. We're not in the 1930s, but the economic symptoms? Alarmingly familiar. Inflation surged, prices for food, rent, fuel, and basic goods have skyrocketed globally. Central banks printed trillions during COVID, and now the bill has come due. Aggressive interest rate hikes. In the U.S., the Federal Reserve raised rates faster than any time in modern history. Mortgage rates have doubled, crushing home buyers and businesses. Record global debt has crossed $315 trillion. Emerging markets are suffocating under loans denominated in stronger currencies. Banking instability. In 2023, banks like Silicon Valley Bank collapsed in hours. Confidence in financial institutions is eroding. Geopolitical instability, war in Ukraine, growing tension in Taiwan, trade wars, sanctions, and supply chain crises. When all of these stress points converge, a fragile system can snap. Here's the good news. We've learned from history. There are critical differences between 1930 and now. Central bank tools. The Fed, ECB, and others can inject liquidity, cut rates, and stabilize banks. Deposit insurance, if your bank fails today. FEDC and similar institutions insure your money up to limits. Social safety nets, unemployment insurance, welfare programs. Stimulus checks didn't exist in the 1930s. Global institutions, the IMF and World Bank, can step in with emergency funds. Better data and speed. In 2008, the response to the crash was faster and more coordinated than in 1929. But that doesn't mean we're immune. It just means we have tools, if they're used wisely. There's one wild card that economists fear the most. A black swan event. Something rare, unexpected, and massively disruptive. Examples? A global cyber attack on banking infrastructure. A major escalation in global war. A U.S. debt default. A collapse of China's real estate or shadow banking sector. These events could turn a downturn into a freefall. Just like how the crash of 1929 snowballed into a decade of despair, it only takes one trigger to ignite a firestorm. While we can't control the global economy, we can control our response. Here's how to protect yourself and your family. Emergency fund. Save 6 months of expenses if possible. Diversify investments. Don't rely solely on stocks. Consider index funds, real assets, and international exposure. Limit bad debt. High-interest debt, like credit cards, can destroy financial resilience. Learn transferable skills. Focus on skills that remain valuable in any economy. Tech, healthcare repair, finance, local resilience. Support community trade, food supply chains, and networks. Remember, every depression in history created survivors, and sometimes millionaires. The Great Depression showed us the cost of ignorance, inaction, and poor decisions. Today's world is uncertain, but it is not doomed. Are we heading for another Great Depression? That depends not only on governments and banks, but on what each of us chooses to do starting now.